Hey everybody, and welcome to the Alabama Take. I'm your host, Corey Hanna. On this week's episode, Blaine Duncan and I talked to Kevin Halbrook, co-host of the Where's the Line podcast. So, all right, we're here with Kevin Halbrook, a.k.a. Kevin Halbrook, and Blaine Duncan's going to help run the ship on this one today. Blaine and Kevin go way back, and Kevin has a podcast of his own and did another small series last year that I'm sure we'll get into at some point. And we are in the back of Druid City Brewing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, so if you hear some crazy sounds, there's brewing equipment around, and there are people milling about out in the tap room, so please excuse that, but I'm going to let Blaine jump on into this one and commandeer this ship for the most part today.
First of all, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, man.
I'm so excited, because first of all, I really like you, Blaine.
I like you, too,
and I don't
man.
ever see you enough.
Well, I was thinking on my ride down here, I listened to a lot of your podcasts down here. There's a few episodes I haven't caught up with, and I took the opportunity to do so on the drive down. And I was just struck by, if somebody said, describe Kevin in one word, and I don't want to be too bland here, but I would say interesting.
I thought you were going to say Marlboro.
No. I don't really.
That's one way to do it.
No, I mean, I guess I do associate you with smoking, but there's more. You have a lot of fascinating interests, and you're knowledgeable about these things, which we're definitely going to get into. So I was just thinking how interesting you were and how good of a podcast guest you'd be.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while about having you on.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys asked me to do this.
I want to go all the way back, and we're going to get into some of your projects and things because they're worth people checking out. But so where are you from? Because I know where you're from, but this in itself is kind of a tale.
I'm from a little town in Walker County, Alabama, called Nauvoo.
Mm-hmm.
When I left there, around 1999, population 250. Wow. It might be even less than that now.
Walker County.
But here's the thing. Now that, what is that, I-22 is cut a path across the western part of Alabama, mm-hmm. There is a big, huge sign that says you can get off here and be in Nauvoo. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. Yeah. Well, if you ever see that sign, do not fucking take it. No, you do not want to see Nauvoo. You do not want to see Nauvoo. It's, Oh, man, it was a hideous little town when I grew up there, and that was before meth. That was before, it became, the meth capital of Alabama. So, I mean, when I grew up there, it was, like I said, population 250. We have
So they probably don't have a police department, which is probably why meth is prevalent down there.
That's an interesting story, too. We had a cop at one time, and if I'm not mistaken, they had to fire the cop because somebody stole the lights off the top of the cop car, and they couldn't afford to replace them.
Roll Tide.
Yeah, but my favorite thing about talking about that town is that there's one red light in the town, but they only turn it on for the Christmas parade as kind of a decoration.
It's like a 4-way stop otherwise.
Yeah, it's not really an active red light. They turn it on for the Christmas parade just to add a little lights to the parade that goes through town.
You grew up in Nauvoo. Did you have more of an accent there? I feel like you might have. It's
Well, maybe. People ask me about my accent a lot.
Uh-huh.
Because you've got an accent.
Oh, yeah.
Blaine's got a Sullivan accent.
Oh, yeah, and I'm fighting it. But it's still very prevalent. But yours is a little more rounded around the corners, closer to neutral than mine.
When me and you were hanging out a lot,
oh, yeah,
I had an impersonation of you.
Okay.
Fire away.
Because we would always talk about, that was back when we were younger, and we were always like, oh, where is this person? Where is that person?
Mm-hmm.
And you would talk to you, and then Blaine would go, I don't know. I texted him.
Sweet Dog had the same, very similar impression.
I texted him.
I read a lot of Blaine's tweets in his voice.
Good. Good. I think
Not
that's
tweets,
part of
You got a
but
distinctive
texts and tweets
voice,
both.
Blaine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we have a little rapport. It's going on for a while. We were just texting the other night about the Chris Lee Knows Best show on TV. You ever seen those commercials?
Are you familiar with Chris Lee Knows
Oh,
Best?
boy.
No, not
That
at all.
son of a bitch.
Blaine used to tweet about it all the time, and I was a little bit under the influence a few nights ago, and was texting Blaine about it, and I was just reading his text back in the voice of Blaine Duncan. So yeah, I can relate to that.
You used to do an impersonation of me too.
Yeah, I did.
Because I remember that because I
used
didn't
to-
know that people were doing impersonations of me. And then one night we were sitting on this porch and
Here?
yeah, in Tuscaloosa, some house down on Reed Street. And somebody did an impersonation of me. And then like 5 other people said, "Oh, I've got a better one." And then you came in on that, but yours is
So are you-
non-verbal impersonation.
Oh.
It's because you did this. You went,
It's
a finger pointing action.
For people listening, it's kind of a hand gesture that evolves into a finger pointing. Okay, that's been a long time since I've done that, so I don't remember maybe there was a verbal component to it. I don't know. So-
horrible. No.
But yeah, I have an impression of almost everyone. Almost everyone. Yeah. Anyway. So what's the most Nauvoo thing about you?
The most Nauvoo thing about me, I think it probably okay. So I do the podcast now, the Where Is the Line podcast, and I think probably the fact that I've spent a lot of time around unsavory people that I'm not afraid to talk to them.
Yeah.
So, and I think unsavory is a bad word. I think on the podcast, the people that I've talked to who are multiple felons and things, they're good people. I mean, they got their shit together now. Am I allowed to cuss on this podcast?
Yes.
Let
Okay.
it fly. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty blue.
But yeah, I really hope that there's not a lot of Walker County left in me. But I'm not afraid of Walker County-ish people to talk to them.
My mom is from Town Creek, Alabama, and I don't know if y'all know where that is or anything about it, but I tell people the same thing. Like I never lived in Town Creek, but I'm like, yeah. They start talking about things. I'm like, I got a lot of people in Town Creek.
Yeah.
Tend to.
Where is it?
It's between Decatur and Tuscumbia.
Gotcha. Yep.
There was a Dairy Queen there for a while.
Yeah, I know. Now I know where you're talking about.
Yeah, that's it.
So, at what point did you start getting into music? Was that in Nauvoo, or did that?
Yeah, I got my first drum set. My dad bought for me. Something from a pawn shop. It would actually probably be awesome today because hipsters love like really old drum sets now. I still love really old drum sets, but anyway. It was terrible. It was the rack tom was connected to the bass drum, and when you would hit it, it would fall down. It would just like rotate under, and I would have to pick it up. So I would play, boom, and then I would hit the rack tom, and it would collapse, and I would have to actually grab it
Mid beat.
and bring it back up.
Doesn't that contribute to your style today? Isn't there something about that? You told me about this once.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I do more probably with my left hand than I normally would if I had not learned how to play the drums on a set that was constantly collapsing around me. And I was having to fix things while I was playing.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, I started playing the drums when I was about, I don't know, 12, 13
Really?
years old, something like that.
It's a good age to start drums.
Yeah, and I got in. There was a little band around Walker County called the Loose Stones. I started playing with them some.
Really?
Yep, that
My
was the first band I was ever in.
You know what the name of my first band I was ever in?
What?
Loose Stone.
You're full of shit.
No, I'm not.
You're full of shit.
No, I'm not. We debated on that name because we were trying to come up with names. I played drums. Horrible drummer, by the way. I was. And we saw that on the sign, Loose Stone, and we thought, well, that'd be that'd be good enough. And we kind of stuck with it for about a week or two, and I think we changed it to something else.
How have we never talked about this before?
No idea.
Both of our first bands had the same name.
And both of us were playing drums.
Yeah.
And we were both in small town, Western Alabama.
I performed your wedding, Blaine, and we never talked about this.
Kevin officiated my wife and I.
I didn't know that.
I did.
My wife and me.
I'll be damned.
That was the first wedding I officiated.
How many have you done?
I think I'm up to 6 now.
See, fascinating guy. We haven't even scratched the surface of some of his talents and secrets and whatnot.
That's amazing.
So, you were into music big time growing up.
Well, because I grew up in that little town, there wasn't, MTV had started and things, and there wasn't, but you didn't get MTV there because, I grew up with my parents telling me you got to go out in the yard and turn the antenna. So
Yes.
I would stand out in the yard, 30-degree weather, turning the antenna, and Dad would yell, okay, we can see it now, and then I could come back in the house.
The Earl.
Huh?
For some reason, my grandparents pronounced it, I think they were trying to say Ariel, and they said, go turn the Earl.
Yeah, I turned the Earl. Yeah, I turned the Earl a lot when I was a kid.
And that's basically just to get the news and whatever happened to be on probably NBC at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
But then...
over the air channels.
Yeah, and then, cable finally came in when, I don't know, it was maybe 13 or 14. But because it was a really religious area, they wouldn't allow MTV. But the town overdid. So I had, there was this girl on the school bus who I would give her a blank VHS tape every day when I got on the school bus. And she would put it in her cassette, in her VCR at night and just hit record. And she would record, just let it play until it ran out. And so I would get to hear 120 minutes on MTV.
Still one of the greatest shows that TV ever
I
did.
know, man.
Ever put it
120
in-
minutes?
Put it in EP mode so you get 6 to 8 hours on it instead of 2. Kids these
Yeah,
days
we
don't
went over
fucking
all
know.
of that. We went over all of that.
There's a struggle.
So how many bands are you in? Have you kept tally of how many bands you've played in throughout the years from 12 till now?
I was thinking about that because I was afraid that I was going to leave some out. And no. I don't know. I think
Tons,
it's
though.
1, 2, 5, 6, 7.
Corey can edit out that.
Yeah, I don't know. 10 to... I don't know.
A bunch.
Oh, more than 10.
Yeah, it's more than 10. I was trying to write down what I remembered, and then there would be one that I would forget, and I'd be like, I can't believe I forgot that one. I don't know. Sorry.
So what bands influenced you from Tuscaloosa?
I'm going to say that, my biggest influence from Tuscaloosa is this guy named Patrick Sprunger. He was the guy who sang in Jim, 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 Haunted Stepdaughters. Because when I moved to Tuscaloosa, the only exposure I really had to music, because even in Nauvoo, you couldn't get a good new music radio station there even. Everything I got was just from these VHS tapes that I was giving this girl on the school bus that had 120 minutes on it. And then I moved to Tuscaloosa, and there are things that are just, kind of omnipresent now, like Talking Heads, Psycho Killer.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that. I had never heard that. And I come to Tuscaloosa, and all of a sudden I'm in range of decent radio stations, and I hear this song that's like fa 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 better. And I go to the bar one day, and I'm like, hey, I heard the song on the radio that goes fa 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 fa. What is that? And then somebody's like, go tell these people what you just asked me. So I just come up here like a complete musical idiot. But anyway, Patrick is probably one of the most well-versed and good music people I've ever met.
And you played in both those bands you just mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Haunted Stepdaughters, did you play in?
Yeah, Haunted Stepdaughters.
Right. And I know you played in Jim, which, we played a lot of shows together with those bands.
Yeah, so, I met him, and he kind of introduced me to, some really good still active punk music. This Bike is a Pipe Bomb, stuff like that. And those are things that I probably wouldn't have been exposed to if I had never met that guy.
I heard in one of your podcasts today that you claim to have been beaten up a lot as a kid. Is that true, or is that an exaggeration?
No, that's very true.
Why would people beat you up? Meanness? I mean, what?
I mean, I'm like
difference?
this right now.
Which seems normal to me.
Well, how much time have you spent in Walker County? I mean,
as little as possible.
Well, exactly. Like I'm like a.
Was it a bullying thing?
Yeah, a lot of it was. I remember my first fight. Oh my God! Quit interrupting.
You remember your first fight?
Oh yeah.
How old were you?
6 or 7 years old. It was so. My grandfather was a fantastic person. He was a coal miner. I don't know where. I honestly don't know where I would be today without that man. I mean, he was, as far as I'm concerned, that as far as the way anyone has treated me and been to me, that is the best person that has ever lived. But he was a coal miner. He was real big on, he wanted his grandson to be tough. Mm-hmm. And so he had a neighbor who, we got in a fight, and it was over a Donald Duck stuffed animal. And we got into it about it. I went over there. This kid was like half my size, even though we were the same age. Beat the shit out of me. And so I come back into my grandparents' house, and I'm like crying. And they're like, what happened? And I'm like, the neighbor, his name is JC. JC, we got in a fight over Donald Duck. JC kicked my ass. And then he's like, that kid's half your size. You go back over there and you knock on the door and you get him to come back out. And so I would just like, with tears in my eyes, had to go next door and knocked on JC's door, and he came outside, beat the shit out of me again over Donald.
Are we talking blood?
There was probably a little blood. I mean, we were
Bruises.
trying to pop people in the face, so I'm sure I had a nosebleed or something when he broken bones or anything. But yeah, and that happened one more time. And then he was finally like, just forget it. My grandson is not a fighter.
Yeah, that sounds really familiar to the situations I grew up in. Except that I don't ever recall getting beat up. I recall getting bullied for being small and easy to pick on.
Yeah, I was never small, and I think that's always been my problem. Is that I'm really tall, mm-hmm. And I think, and it still happens today. I think if you walk into the bar looking for trouble, mm-hmm. I'm the biggest guy there that you feel like you could probably beat up.
You fall in that range.
Yeah. I'm like, and it happens a lot. Like little short, muscular guys.
So, we kind of drifted back to the past. Who are your favorite bands now? Local or otherwise? I mean, just anywhere.
Probably my favorite band of all time was Blaine Duncan and the Lookers.
Yeah, right.
I will say, though, Virginia State Park, and I know I've said this, and you have not believed me for years and years, but I do think that's one of the best songs that came out of Tuscaloosa. Virginia State Park.
You of course, you remember Steve, who worked at Egan's, door guy, bartended some. Remember Steve? Steve Kowalski?
Oh, yeah, of course.
He claims that's one of his favorite songs.
Oh, really?
Like, he claims that.
Well, me and him have never talked about that, so... He's very sweet and kind about it and has messaged me before about it. But I don't know. It's just another song. Yeah, I don't know. I really like local music. So
do you really? So, all right, who's on the radar right now? Because I'm way out of touch with local music.
Nobody.
So I've heard.
And that's a fucking shame.
You're playing right now with DC Moon.
Yeah, I'm playing the drums with them.
How's that going?
It's good. I mean, they're really good people. I mean, DC's written a lot of really good songs. It was really the first time I ever practiced with them was I don't know what you guys want from me. Like, I'm probably just like going off on like crazy shit.
No, this is it.
The first time I ever played practice with DC Boone was the weirdest band practice ever, because I went in there and he had a table set up that had like fresh cut fruit and like a big pile of like pizza rolls, and he had like chips and dip and stuff. Like, he had
condiments.
He had a whole buffet. And I'm like, is this where you get to when you play music for this long? You know, I'm like,
I'd never aspired to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, usually I show up and I'm like, I bring beer and then maybe beg for another beer when I drink all of my beer. Like, I have never been to a band practice where someone cooked. But anyway, no, I really like playing with them. They're excellent people, and DC's kind of a Tuscaloosa fixture. He's kind of been through all of the ups and downs of the town. You know, he's still there, still doing it.
So what's your favorite memory as a band member of any band?
There's two that are probably tied. There's probably when I played at the Chucker. I opened for the Dexatines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Legendary bar, the Chucker. If you know much about Tuscaloosa or Tuscaloosa music, you know about the Chucker, which has since closed its doors. So yeah, all right. Give me that story.
Okay, so the Chucker was the first band I played in Tuscaloosa. It was a band called Pong. We practiced twice a week for a year before we ever played a show. And that will probably, for the rest of I will probably never in my life be in a band that's as tight as that. We played 2 shows, and that was it. Practiced for a year, twice a week, 2 shows.
Done.
Yeah, who was in it?
Michael Scherer used to play with the Secret Intentions. God, I'm embarrassed. I don't remember everybody's name.
But you were on drums?
Jeff. Yeah, I played the drums in that band. And that was back when I thought I needed a really big drum set, when I didn't know how shitty it was to, like, move drums out of a place. So, like, I had this great big drum set and all these cymbals and things. But anyway, we opened up for the Dexatines. And I like to say that was before the Dexatines had Southern accents. I don't give a damn if you keep that in. They know they didn't used to have Southern accents.
They were in a real punk phase, right?
Yeah.
Heavy punk phase.
Are you sure about Elliot? Because Elliot sounds like he was born that way.
I don't give a damn. You can leave that in. Elliot can come talk to me if he wants to. That man did not have a Southern accent back then. Well, he probably did. He didn't sing with a Southern accent back then, because they were just straight fucking punk back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like balls of the wall, snare every other beat, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, that was great. I mean, that was the first time that I've ever played in a place that had a good sound system. And also, I had never been in a green room before.
I didn't know the Chucker had a green room.
The Chucker had a green room.
Did they really?
Yes. Above the bar, there was this little room. The ceiling was only, I think, about 6 foot high, so I had to, like, squat down to get in there. And it was completely covered. The walls were completely covered with these records that were nailed to the wall. I tore a piece off of a record, and I still have it to this day. But it was great, because you could play at the Chucker, and, you know, we're this little shitty band. The only other show we ever played was in the Vinyl Solution. And, you know, we go and play the show at the Chucker. We've got like a sound guy. The sound is fantastic. We're allowed to set up in this green room and drink beer and stuff, and nobody else is allowed in there unless we tell them that we can. So it was, you know, my memory of it later was a lot of, I only allowed drug dealers and hookers up there. But none of that happened. We just sat up there alone.
What about as an audience member? What's a fascinating memory from being in an audience at a local Tuscaloosa show?
What immediately come to mind, there was this band called Slobberbone. Have you ever heard them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would love
Give Me Back My Dog.
Give Me Back My Dog.
Yeah.
They played the Chucker one night. And there was nobody there. There was literally me and my two friends who were in the Honda Stepdaughters with me, Robin and Patrick. And we stood in front of the stage, like screaming for "Give me back my dog" and all of that. And there was nobody else in there. There was literally not another soul in there. And then about a week later, they were on Conan O'Brien, I think.
There were maybe 30 people when I saw the Truckers there in 2002.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great place to see, like, a good band was a Chucker. And I don't think Tuscaloosa's right anymore for the lack of it.
I wouldn't disagree. Egan's took up the mantle for quite a while.
Oh, fuck. Do we want to go down that road?
Well, I was about to say, yeah, speaking of Egan's.
Before we get into Egan's, well, no, let's stay on the band track. Let's just we'll take some an opportunity to maintain a theme here. So, Egan's kind of took up the mantle of the Chucker. A lot of the people ventured over there after the Chucker shuttered its doors. And you recently did a podcast about this time last year on how Egan's changed. It shut its doors for a couple months and changed ownership. Why did you feel like you wanted to do about a 3 or 4 part podcast on Egan's, and what inspired that?
That was me and my friend Jamie did that. It's up to debate about whose idea it was. She said that it was her idea, and that I got drunk and forgot that she suggested it, and then I suggested it myself later on. Regardless, the people in Egan's just, you go in there, it was like the local bar, and it was where, like, weird bands would get their starts and things, and, this is still Alabama. I mean, it's Tuscaloosa, but it's still Alabama, and there's just a handful of places where people can go who are trans and gay and all kinds of, but also Republicans and conservative people. I mean, if you're an open-minded person and you're willing to talk to anybody, that was kind of the only place you could go. And the people there, like, you sit down and you have a drink and people start telling these just amazing stories. And I remember, because my grandfather had this fantastic voice, and he was such a good storyteller. And he died, and I don't have any audio of that. And I don't know, that was in my mind, and I was like, I love so many of these stories that these people tell. We don't know what's going to happen at this place. So I was completely willing to totally humiliate myself by sitting in there with a table and some microphones and headphones, looking like a complete fucking asshole, to get those stories.
And you could find them at Thick Smoke and Loud Music.
Yeah, it's Thick Smoke and Loud Music. It'll be around for another year or so until I get tired of paying for the hosting.
Okay. You can still download them on podcasts, right? Any podcast network, I suppose.
Yeah, they should be pretty much everywhere. They've been distributed to iTunes and things, so yeah.
Is there anything you left out of those podcasts?
Yeah.
Can you share anything that? And we don't have to name names. I don't want to do that, but
but I mean, those podcasts. Like, so we went in there. We thought we were going to sit there for one day and have 5 or 6 people, whoever we come up with, would just come up and tell some stories. And what ended up happening was people lining up to talk. So we ended up spending 4 days there. We were there for 9 hours one day recording stories. I mean, we ended up with over 30 hours of these stories, and they were so good. I mean, like, and that's really what I wanted. I wanted people to come in there and talk about the things that we talk about with each other. And I was afraid that when we put a microphone in somebody's face, it's just going to be just this benign bullshit, like, oh, I met my girlfriend here, or, but no. People were talking about snorting coke off the bar top, one person, and we left this one in. She talked about some crazy fucking party where she let like some dude she met that night shave a heart in her pubic hair and stuff. I mean, like, it just went, and it was great because that's exactly what I wanted, because that's exactly the kind of conversations that we have. We're in the bar, and I wanted to kind of keep that, you know, because I didn't know at the time, I didn't know if it was ever going to be like that again. And that's exactly what I got, and I'm real happy with what I got.
Yeah, it's great. Fascinating set of stories.
But yeah, I did cut some things out because that's what you asked. Because
it is, yeah.
I did cut some things out, but the only things that we cut out of that were people who told stories about other people. We didn't cut out anything because it was too lewd or illegal. The only things that we cut out is when somebody told a story about somebody else that I didn't know if that person would be okay with that story being told. And that's pretty much the only things that we cut out of that.
Oh, okay.
Our favorite dive in Tuscaloosa has a new owner for the first time in almost 40 years. Egan's Bar has long been known for thick smoke, loud music, and a quirky band setup.
It's considered a badge of honor to the band to have people walk through the band to go to the restrooms.
We spent the better part of a week talking with the bar's regulars, and they did not hold back.
If you pick up a frat boy at Egan's, he doesn't expect you to call him the next day.
We've interviewed some of the most colorful people we've ever known.
I have been cross-dressing for almost 20 years now. Anybody who I whooped their asses back in the day, I'm friends with now.
And we got a little emotional with some of our best friends.
The love that we have for this place is just immense.
I see Egan's family more than I see my family. Roll Tide.
Produced by whereistheline.net and available now on the alabamatake.com.
I'm going to shift gears. You are really into, or you were back when you and I were hanging out, you're really into horror. Which also will be a nice segue into your podcast, but you're really into horror and have an encyclopedic knowledge of it.
Oh, I wouldn't call it encyclopedic.
Well, Wikipedic. Would you go that far?
Yeah, because Wikipedic denotes inaccurate.
Well, so wait, yeah. What got you into the horror and the macabre?
You know, I've thought about that a lot because of the podcast that we do now. I don't know. I don't know if this is like an actual connection or if it's one of those things that you're looking for a connection and then you just make one.
Yeah.
But when I was like 4 or 5 years old, we came across a dead body in a ditch.
Wait. What? Like literally? That happened?
Yeah.
This isn't a plot to a Stephen King short story?
No.
It's called The Body.
No.
AKA Stand By Me.
Me and my mother, like, we got in the car and we were going to this gas station or something. There were a bunch of people standing around a ditch. And I don't think she knew what was going on, or I don't know. But we got out of the car and, yeah, there was a dead woman just laying in the ditch.
Oh, my God.
There.
Elaborate on that. What did you find out what was going on?
No, and it's actually one of those things I want to do for a podcast one day because I was talking to Mom about that, and she, you know, because I'm prone to false memories where I remember things that didn't actually happen, and I asked my mother about this within the past year. I was like, did that really happen? And she was like, yes, the woman had a rose tattoo on her shoulder. My mom thinks that she was murdered and thrown off by a truck driver or something. But
so how fresh dead are we talking?
You know, like I said, I was like 4 or 5 years old. There was an odor. I remember her skin was bluish, but that's about all I got in terms of actual memory of that.
Did it haunt you? Did it bother you? Or were you fascinated? What happened with that?
No, I mean, like, I was 4 or 5 years old. I didn't give a shit. I was like, dead lady. Let's go play G.I. Joes or something. Like, no, it did not. And that's why I say that. Like, I don't know where my horror movie fascination came from, and like when I try to think about it, I try to connect it to that. But realistically, no, I just went about my day after that. Like, that didn't really, I don't recall that ever affecting me. But anyway.
You and I are close to the same age, right? 40. I'm 42.
Yeah, I'm 41 or 42.
Okay, so we grew up in that era of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all
the
that.
Golden age, practical effects.
Yeah. So do you think that's kind of what got you into a long-standing love of horror movies? Were you into those in the 80s, late 80s, 90s? Did you?
I just now considered another theory on why I'm into those. You're going to have to edit me so much. I'm so sorry.
I barely edit at all.
What? What? No, you've got to edit this. I'm talking so much horse shit. You've got to edit the shit out of this or I'm going to sound like a dumbass.
So what's the theory?
It might be boobs.
Boobs?
Boobs.
Because you got to see them in so many horror movies, so you'd watch a horror movie to look for the...
That might actually be it. Now, like, I've never considered this until now. Like, I might be having a revelation right now.
We have an epiphany here on the Alabama Take.
We are part therapy sesh.
But I do remember that, like, because there was this little gas station, I'd ride my bicycle to it, and I would just rent movies from it. And I, at some point, got really obsessed with the horror section, and I would just go through it. I would just go down the line, every one after the other, every one.
You were guaranteed nudity in movies.
I know.
Slasher movies, there were
slasher movies,
dead people and blood and boobs. I mean,
little TNA.
Bingo bango.
Oh my God.
So what came
that
first?
Might
your obsession?
actually be it, because I could rent a movie that didn't look like a dirty movie on the cover, but it might have boobs.
And I'm pretty sure I did that.
There was
holy shit! This might be why I'm obsessed with horror movies. This is like a therapy session.
I love it. That could be the reason why you got into horror. That rings a bell to me. I would rent horror movies. I can clearly remember. I may be telling on myself too much here. I can clearly remember renting some scary movies and not really watching them, kind of fast forwarding to the kill parts where the girl was, this is awful. We're living in the Me Too moment. I shouldn't be admitting such.
You know what, though?
What?
In that horror movie section, I don't think that the people who owned that convenience store, they were just getting like, this is a list of the popular horror movies, and they would get the tapes. But Faces of Death was in there.
I watched many Faces of Death.
I did too.
But I usually would only watch them with a crew. That's not something I was renting and like watching on my own. What about you?
I remember the first time I saw one, I didn't know what it was because I was going through the VHS tapes.
And there's probably a lot of people who don't know what Faces of Death. Okay, so here's what we're talking about. VHS tapes, Faces of Death, Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, and they went on up. And what they were, actual people dying on tape, usually by accident.
Interspliced with reproductions of things.
Which were also pretty scary.
Because a lot of those were not real.
Okay, yeah. I just remember the ones that were real, like people getting eaten by an alligator by accident.
Yeah, there would be something like that, but then there would also be like a guy getting drawn and quartered, and it would be...
Yeah.
It would be...
No, wasn't that supposed to be real, like filmed in Saudi Arabia or something?
No, they acted like all of that was real, but a lot of that stuff on the Faces of Death was not real. Now, there was another series that came out later called Traces of Death, and all of Traces of Death was real, but Faces of Death, the one that everybody knows, it's about half and half.
Okay. Well, they had me fooled. Yeah, so you were saying you would rent those too, or you stumbled across those by renting scary movies. You ended up bringing Faces of Death home.
Yep.
Tell me about that. Did that change you?
It fundamentally changed me.
Yeah.
No, it didn't.
Well, I mean, and what we're leading up to is that you now host the one of my favorite podcasts. Especially
That's
one of my favorite podcasts by somebody I know, which in the year 2019, everyone you know has one podcast. But yours is called Where's the Line?
Yep.
I love it. Tell me about it. Tell our listeners about it in case they don't know.
Where's the Line is a podcast where we talk about. A lot of people think it's a true crime podcast to start off with, but it's not. It's any story that we feel like is very disturbing that kind of might upset your stomach a little bit. We'll talk about it. A lot of that falls within true crime, but a lot of it's not. Our last episode was about human head transplants.
Just came out this week, right?
Yep, just came out last week. But that's been really interesting because, I've played in all these bands that we talked about, and this is probably the only thing I've ever done that anybody cared about.
It's awesome. It's well done. You guys put time into this. How long does it take you to research an episode?
We can only do an episode every month because, I wanted to do something between, so there's these podcasts like My Favorite Murder, which, those ladies are really funny, but they're kind of just reading the Wikipedia article.
Okay.
But then there's podcasts like Sword and Scale, where they actually will dig into criminal records and things and play 911 tapes. But Mike Bidea's got probably the worst fucking sense of humor in the world.
Is that the host?
Yes. I mean, Jesus
I heard you
Christ.
mention these people on your podcast, but I didn't quite get them.
But anyway, I wanted something in the middle of that, I wanted something that was like a incredibly well-researched bar conversation about really morbid topics.
And that's what it feels like. It feels like talking to you about all these interesting things that you've got bottled up inside.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I talk about. I'll go to the bar and annoy the shit out of people because I'm like, did you hear about this guy that cut his head off? Here's how he survived because it didn't cut through the carotid arteries. And it was, it got all 4 jugular veins, but not the carotid artery. And, people are just like...
Which, by the way, is an episode of Where's the Line?
Yeah,
this guy cut his head off with a chainsaw practically. But... was that him? Or was that his ghost?
It might have been the ghost.
So, but he damn near cut his head off with a chainsaw by accident, walked out of the woods with a broken leg, holding his own head.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's yeah. And listen to that one. I wouldn't say it churned my stomach. My stomach, I felt something. I didn't get grossed out really because I listened to the whole thing. That was a good one.
But we'll talk to people too.
So, you called up like his great nephew.
Yeah, we called up his nephew, and he talked to us about sitting in the hospital with this guy that almost cut his head off with a chainsaw. And that goes back to the Walker County thing. You'd be a hard damn pressed to find somebody that is more fucked up than somebody I grew up around, And so I'll talk to anybody. We talked, I think it was 2 episodes ago, we talked to a guy who spent a couple of years in Jackson State Prison in Michigan, who his roommate was a guy who ate his wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this guy was a 4-time felon.
So where do you get the subjects and the ideas for these episodes?
I just naturally, on my own, these are just the things that I Google. This is just what I do with my spare time. It's just look up disturbing fucking stories. And if I find one that kind of sticks with me, I'll just start trying to call people who had some kind of
connection
to that story.
So your podcast is called Where's the Line? Let's promote it a little. Where can you can find it anywhere on, right? And
yeah, we are omnipresent in the podcasting world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you got the stomach for it.
It's great. I don't know. It's not that gross to me, but 2 of my favorite episodes, you talk to a one-time convicted felon. That one is fascinating.
4-time convicted felon.
Right, but I was saying, he's not in jail now.
No, he's out of jail now, but he literally kicked someone's scalp off.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, listen to it. It's great. That's a good episode. I've listened to a lot of them. Not all of them, a lot. I'm still playing catch up on some. And then my other favorite one, and this one is the one that I think would test the limits of people listening to it.
Mr. Hands.
Yes. Can I tell people what that one's about?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Give it a tease. They'll go check it out.
Okay, here's the tease. The guy died from letting a horse fuck him in the ass.
Okay, maybe they won't check it out.
No, man, I'm telling you, it didn't really gross me out, but because I was just like, what? No, is that? Could you? Well, and then go listen to it. Kevin will explain that for you.
That's one of those things, and that's the kind of thing I want to do, because that was one of those early viral videos that everybody passed around. It was this guy getting fucked in the ass by this horse who was named Big Dick. That was just short for Richard, by the way. But
it just so happened he had a big dick.
Yeah, it just so happened. That was completely coincidental. But it was one of those things. It was like this viral video that went around, and nobody really looked into what the story was behind that, you know?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the kind of thing I want to do, because a lot of people watch this video. Everybody's just like, okay, this guy that died having sex with a horse. So we just started getting in touch with people, and we spent about 2 or 3 weeks on bestiality forums.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Talking to people.
So you're on like watch lists and shit.
I know what I work in IT, so I know how to do VPNs.
There you go.
So no, I'm probably still on a watch list, but no, I spent like a couple of weeks communicating with these people on these bestiality forums. I found a guy that knew him. There's not a lot of way to verify whether or not he actually knew him, but this guy's username on these bestiality forums was 12 years old.
So where do you find time for these? Because you have a full-time job, you still hang out, at bars, and you still play in bands, and where do you find time to research as well as put together the podcast and edit it? Because it's a well-done one.
Yeah, that's a good question, because my podcast is sit and talk to somebody for an hour and then listen back to it and make sure that nothing needs to be edited out, throw some music in it, and it's done. Like, I spend very little time with my podcast. So something that takes that amount of research and that amount of effort, because it's like putting together a documentary, and I put together little short video documentaries, and those are they are very time-consuming.
It's just what I like to do. It's, the reward from it is getting an email from somebody saying that they like the show from Australia or South Africa. We got a guy from South Africa. It's just what I like to do. It's how I spend my spare time anyway. And it actually keeps me out of the bars a lot, because I'd rather sit at home looking up these ridiculous, crazy, macabre stories and editing things,
it's a little
putting
cheaper
music
that
behind
way too.
things than watching Netflix or something, I guess.
You guys have a phone number for your podcast.
Excuse me?
You have a phone number, right? That
We
people
do.
can call.
We do.
Have you gotten a lot of people calling the phone?
Oh, yeah. The first time when we put it out, we had like 6 messages. And it took me forever to find it. I was determined, because I wasn't going to pay for a phone number. And so Google Voice gives free phone numbers, and you can put a voicemail on it. And I was determined to get one that spelled something. But they don't let you search for them by the spelling. So I just went through all of these phone numbers and put them in this website that says, what does this phone number spell website? And so, yeah, you can call Where Is the Line by dialing a dumbass tit.
Spell out dumbass tit.
DUMBASSTIT.
That's pretty good.
And that'll take you to the messaging.
It will, and you should call that, because the guy that does our intro, I paid him to do a voicemail message for us.
Who is that guy?
A voice actor I found online.
Really?
Yeah, no, that's not anybody I know.
Oh, I thought it might be somebody that maybe even I knew, but no.
I will say that there's probably a lot to be desired from our podcast, but it is not in the intro man, because we got the best intro man in all of podcasting.
It's good.
Hey guys, I want to take a quick time out. We have a new thing on the Alabama Take website. Blaine Duncan, the founder of the Alabama Take, has started a new podcast called Taking It Down. It's a less interview style podcast, but more of a pop culture chat where he talks about his favorite TV at the moment. He's going to be doing movies and books and probably music and everything else. So go check that out. It's in a different stream than this podcast. You'll have to search Taking It Down. It's on all of the major podcast aggregators and everything else that's out there and live. So go find it. Share our social media with your friends. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Sharing is caring. Help us out. Thanks.
Talk to me about some of the... You used to talk to me about this at Egan's or when we were just sitting around about some of these horror movies, these foreign horror movies, and you'd kind of turn me onto them. And I maybe watched a couple here and there. What are some of the most disturbing ones? Like, give me one that gives you chills, that bothers you.
That is super easy. And I'll tell you right now, if you ever Google disturbing horror movies, and you find a list that does not have Cannibal Holocaust or Serbian film as number one, just move on, because that person has no fucking idea what they're talking about.
I've watched Cannibal Holocaust, or most of it.
Have you watched Serbian film?
No, tell me.
Here's the thing about Serbian film. Okay, let's go back to Googling horror movies. You Google the most disturbing movies of all time. You find a list with Cannibal Holocaust on it. That's a respectable list. If you find a list with Serbian film on it...
That's the name of it.
The name of the movie is Serbian film.
Okay.
There is no list like that has Cannibal Holocaust and Serbian film on it, where Serbian film is not number one on that list.
Tell me about it.
Serbian film's a movie about a retired porn actor who decides to make some extra money from some rich people who are going to give him bovine hormones, which make him inclined to fuck anything.
Oh boy.
And they take that to the
extreme.
Very much to the extreme.
So that's a disturbing one. What?
Oh yeah.
Give me a film. I don't even care how old it is or whatever. What film scares you? Like, that would just bother me.
There's only one movie that scares me. There's only one movie that will ever scare me.
That's what I figured. I figured there would be just the one. So what is it? Which I don't know the answer to this.
The Exorcist.
Yes.
That is the only movie.
Really?
Yes.
I can watch anything. I can watch anything in total dark and sleep like a baby after, except for The Exorcist.
Yep.
That movie scares the fuck out of me.
The first one.
I don't know why. Oh, yeah. No, none of the subsequent ones. And, I'm not a religious person. I don't know why that...
It did a job on me as a kid. I happened to see a little of it, and it was, it still holds up. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, I wore a helmet. And my mother will tell you that. Actually, my mother was in a podcast talking about The Exorcist. It was vaguely related to something we were talking about.
That sounds like some shit I would have done, because I was a very skittish, scared of everything kind of kid. And that sounds like some shit I would have done.
I wasn't scared of anything, but I had heard a lot about The Exorcist. It's one of those movies that it was there on the shelf, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get that. When I get everything, I'll get Faces of Death, but I don't know if I want to get The Exorcist or not, because I've heard a lot of shit about that. And then I watched it, and I put on a helmet, and I had some kind of weapon.
That's amazing.
Do books scare you? Can something you read terrify you as much as a movie? Because it doesn't quite for me.
I don't get terrified by fiction that much, really. Whether it be books or movies, there's no movie that really scares me other than The Exorcist. And I can't think of a book that scares me.
Any movie that comes close to The Exorcist doesn't really scare you, but you can see how it would scare a bunch of other people.
I don't know why it's religious horror. It's like, because I grew up, the house I grew up in, you know, as I said earlier, population 250, for whatever fucking reason, I grew up I could stand on my front porch and see 3 churches from my front porch. Never went to church. But there's something about demon possession. I don't believe in it, not even a little bit. But if something's going to scare me, it's going to be that. So things like The Exorcist.
You see Hereditary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that kid getting her head smashed scene.
That was weird.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good scene.
That was a good scene.
I feel like it went downhill after that because I saw that and I was like, this is gonna be something.
It was one of those movies where, like, I don't get excited about horror movies anymore. I went through a phase where I did, and then I was intrigued by that one, and my kid loves horror movies, so we went to see it, and he was way more into it than I was, because when we left, I was like, will you explain to me what the fuck I just watched? Because I had no idea. And he said he had done, like, research. He knew, like, he loves to go in and read spoilers before he sees something. And I don't understand the point of that, but whatever, that's his deal. But he had read all these things, and he knew what was going to happen, and he knew why it was going to happen, and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, okay, well, so it makes sense there when you explain it, but I was like, I don't want somebody to have to explain to me what I just watched, and I had zero fucking clue what happened the last 20 minutes of that movie. So am I stupid in that, or?
No, I think I get a lot of enjoyment out of watching something like that and then going online and reading several different things. I like something to stimulate my brain a little bit, even especially with horror, I think. You just like the disturbing, am I right?
Yeah. I like things that are really disturbing and things with good practical effects. Nothing will take me out of a movie like a CGI blood splatter.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
You told me of a movie years ago where a lady was in jail with maybe another guy, and he... All right, if you're sensitive, if your ears are sensitive right now, you need to hit that 30-second button twice.
I already know what you're talking about. SS Hell Camp.
Okay.
It was a lady.
She rips her own pubes out.
No.
Someone rips her pubes out.
No, there's a monster that eats her pubes. It's there was this whole period in the 60s where exploitation films were like a big thing. And, you know, so you had these movies, probably the one that everybody's heard of is I Spit on Your Grave. These like rape fantasy movies and things. But there was a period where nothing was off the table, and there was just like this little sliver of time where Nazi exploitation movies were a thing. I don't feel like I should go too deep into that, but you can imagine. I mean, it was essentially
anything goes.
It was it was concentration camp rape fantasy movies.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was a thing.
Hey,
it was a
you
thing.
Didn't make them.
No, I didn't make them. I don't agree with their existence at all, but it was a thing. And there was one called SS Hell Camp, where there were Nazi scientists who made a monster, and there was absolutely no makeup effects. The monster was just like a hideous, fat, hairy man. I mean, like, they didn't even do anything to him. Like, they didn't even put any kind of makeup or anything on him. He was just like this naked, hairy man. But yeah, he ate women's pubic hair for food.
And that was the best paying job my Uncle John ever had.
Was that your uncle? I knew that. I knew there had to be a Sullivan connection to that somewhere.
Tell me what makes a good podcast. You're good.
Oh,
at it.
how the hell would I know?
I figure you listen to a lot of them, don't you?
I'll tell you what I think makes a good anything is not worrying about making money. I think that's where, and I know so many people are going to disagree with me, and so many people I know will disagree with me, but as soon as you worry about whether or not you're going to make money off of something, everything just fucks up after that. It's just...
I agree.
I mean...
Who's going to argue against that?
Do you want me to name names?
No. That was a rhetorical question.
But it's like when you're doing something creative and you worry about the money that you're making from it. I mean, first of all, for, like piracy and things, for piracy to be an issue for you, you've got to be a rich person. You have already made your millions if piracy is cutting into your bottom line. Nobody's pirating Where Is the Line. Nobody's pirating the Alabama Take.
Right. The hell you say.
And if somebody does, I would be fucking flattered.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I used to search for like band I was in for a while on like file sharing things just to be like, oh, somebody cared.
They didn't, did they?
There were a couple times where
did you?
Yeah.
Lauderdale?
It might have had like 4 or 5 downloads. Yeah.
Was it Lauderdale?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think podcasting, music, anything, if you're getting into it for the money, you're probably going to be just fucking shitty at it, and I'm not going to want to hear it.
Word.
Well, I hate to shift gears, but we do need to wrap up. We're a little over an hour, but that's fine. We can go however long. But
there's a lot of editing to be done in this.
I got to get out of town anyway, so I hate to wrap it up. But tell us what's done up real good right now for you.
Oh my God! I never mentioned Samantha in this. Samantha's my co-host on We're in the Line.
She's great
awesome.
too.
But what's making me happy right now is the fact that I am 6'4" and I'm dating a 4'11" Alabama powerlifting champion. She holds the record in her weight class for powerlifting. And I don't know why that is so hilarious to me. But we go to the gym together and see,
it's
I'll
like
do
Shaquille O'Neal and his wife.
I'll do squats with these things. Like, we went to the gym together 2 days ago, and I put these weights on my back, and I did the squat thing with the weights, and I felt like I was doing really good. In fact, my thighs are really sore right now. And I said, well, how far are you going to go? And she says, well, this is my warm-up. So I'm this physically rather large person who is dating someone who is, I think, 1 inch off of midget status. Who
can you say that?
Her warm up is more than my maximum amount of weight that I can lift.
That's awesome.
There you go, done up real good. And shout out to Samantha one more time, co-host of
Samantha Bowman.
Yeah, tell everybody
a wonderful co-host. Great friend of mine, somebody I played in bands with before, and we didn't even get around to it. But
she sings one of my favorite Tuscaloosa songs of all time, that Here's Your Shampoo song that used to be on MySpace. I wish you'd send me an MP3 of it. I love that song. Can't even think of the, I can't even think of the name of it. But
it was probably Ammonia. There was a song about a giant squid that fell in love with a water buoy.
That sounds about right.
And she wrote that.
Man, it's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Done up real good for you, Jim, with your new love interest. That's all right.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for
letting
me talk to you for a while.
Where's the line? Found anywhere you can get a podcast.
Yep. And where'stheline.net.
And DC Moon.
DC Moon. We'll be playing shows around Tuscaloosa whenever.
All right, man. It's great to have you on. Good to see you.
Thank you, Blaine.
Thank you. That'll do it for this episode. Please do me a favor and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Alabama Take, or check us out at thealabamatake.com. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes if you like what we're doing.